Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this month's instalment of the Technorama Tuesdays webinar series, brought to you by Technorama, of course, and the Community Media Training Organisation. My name is Hannah Murray, and I'm the Student Services and Compliance Officer at the Community Media Training Organisation. I'm also a board member of Technorama, so thank you so much for joining us tonight. Before we get started, I would like to take this moment to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are recording this session, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and acknowledge their elders past, present, and emerging. We acknowledge that their sovereignty was never ceded. So, what are we up to tonight? We are looking at 5 no-charge tricks to solve OB and phone and audio problems right now. We're also going to take a look at the Technorama 2020 virtual conference, and that is this Saturday. If you haven't yet signed up, please do. It's going to be an awesome, awesome conference. We're going to be led into battle by our wonderful El Capitan, the president of Technorama, John Maisels. So if you could appear, John, that would be great.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Massive applause. Okay, you can wander off now. That's really good. Thank you very much, Hannah. Hannah will now disappear into the background and watch your chat. So Hannah is going to tell me if you say something that is uncomplimentary, and then I will go away. Wah, wah, wah. Look, this is an interesting session. So as Hannah said, it's twofold. When, like everybody else, we discovered that we weren't going to be running Technorama Warm Body, it was a major disappointment. At the same time, I am I'm the division head for technology services for the World Science Fiction Convention, a 3,000 person warm body convention that is due to run in Wellington, New Zealand in 3.5 weeks. It starts on the 29th of July. And the two things actually happened at roughly the same time. I discovered that we were shutting down Technorama, but we're also going to have to do something with Con Zealand. And there I was with my hand on the tiller of both, trying to work out what we did. In fact, the solutions and a lot of the things I'm going to talk about tonight have come out of much of the work that's been done over the last couple of months of working out how do you fully virtualize a 3,000 person convention, a non-trivial exercise, particularly when all the behaviors of a virtual conference change from warm body. And what we expect at a warm body conference is you go, you hear stuff, you talk about things, you meet people, you go out, you eat, you take away new information and new contacts. That's sort of what it's all about. How do you do the same thing when you're in exactly this environment? And that's part of what I'm going to talk about. The second part of tonight comes out of some discussions that have been happening relatively recently, although they're perennial in Q&A, they just keep coming up. And it's about how do you deal with phones? I suspect that tonight I'm only going to get a fraction of the way into the topic. So it's a quite deep topic. How do you interface phones and many other things into your studio environment? And some of it changes now that we're all NBN, and some of it actually doesn't change. Basic principles have been known ever since telephones were invented, and those principles have not changed. And an understanding of the principles is a good thing to carry with you. And guess what? My understanding of how you interface telephones and work I did when I was pretty young on getting phone patch into studios is solving problems that I have now with a 3,000 person convention and audio going all over the place, and particularly how do we virtualize television production for an award ceremony that will have 130 nominees in 130 locations for 2.5 hours of television. How do we bring all that together? And it all comes back to these fundamental principles. It's all the same thing. So I was thinking, all right, let's go and talk about some things you can do for free. All right, this is the unashamed disclosure. I'm sure you've all heard of clickbait. You know what it's like. That thing comes up and it says, oh, the dirty little secret that you want to know. And you click on it. You know, it's got some prurient picture of a half-naked person. You go, oh, I want to see that picture. And it's never there. Well, we're going to include some of the 5 little secrets that I said I was going to talk about, but hold your breath. So here we go. First thing I want to do is a couple of ads. We'll talk about, yeah, blah, 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 boom, I've already talked about that. Okay, firstly, some ads. The Technorama Awards aren't going to be held this year, certainly not now. We're sort of hoping that if everything calms down a bit, we might be able to have a warm body gathering later in the year, but we thought it was not going to work terribly well if we did the awards. But there are awards. The sector has some awards. The Community Broadcasting Association conference is going to happen. It will also be virtualised. And the awards for the CBAA are currently open. There are 2 technical categories. The awards close on the 17th of this month. So 17th of July. So from tomorrow, you've got a little over 2 weeks. There's the Excellence in Technical Services category and the Excellence in Technical Innovation. The focus is on your station and on the sector. If you've got some stars at your station, or if you feel like nominating yourself, which is perfectly okay, you should do that. So go to the CBAA website. It will tell you all about how to enter. Probably helps to be a CBAA member. There's an ad. The other thing is for TR20. Well, we're going to talk a lot about TR20V, the virtual version of TR20. So it's right there now. You can go and sign up right now. Go to the Technorama website, technorama.org.au. It's only $35 for the entire day. I did the calculation. $35 is like 3 cups of coffee and 3 smashed Avo sandwiches. You can afford it. Go and sign up now. It includes 100% of the costs of the bring your own food and drink to the breakout sessions and to the quiz night. It also gets you into the quiz night. It's good stuff. The homepage has a good story on it, and after you sign up, you will be taken to a page which tells you then what you have to do. And I'm about to tell you some of the tools that you will use, particularly Discord, which has been a great find and is really, really exciting. So if you've never heard of Discord, you're about to have a bit of a treat. By the way, to get the $35 rate, you have to be a Technorama member. If you're not a Technorama member, it will cost you $50. It costs you $10 to be a Technorama member. So the total fee would be $45 or $50 if you're not a member. Have I made the point? Yes. I'm not going to say that again. The $50 one is on the website. If you really want it, you're just going to have to go and find it. We don't want to make it easy for you to find that. Now, 2 other things that will be happening as there are sessions, and you can go to the website and see the program right now. There is also, very specially, a women's and gender GNC forum, which we are running because, if it's not obvious to everybody, this industry doesn't have what anybody would think, certainly what I don't think, is a reasonable core of women who are, and gender neutral, gender non-compliant, my God, it's been a long day. GNC people.
Gender non-conforming.
Gender non-conforming. Thank you very much. That was the voice in my, that everybody heard. So we have the situation where really the industry has been typified by males and even more graying males and even more fat old white guys. And I have to include myself in that group. If we don't reach out to younger people, if we don't reach out to groups who typically have not engaged with broadcasting technology as a profession or as an avocation, we're dead. So Technorama is absolutely committed to ensuring that we're open, that we're welcoming, and the forum is going to be an opportunity for people who fit into the categories of women and GNC to be able to come and participate, have a bit of a think, come back with some recommendations. What do we do to make ourselves more appealing, more attractive, more engrossing, more welcoming, all of those things, because that's ultimately what we want to do. And from 1930, the quiz night. So you can go and find a team, engage with the quiz night. The quiz manager is our very own Hannah Murray, who did such an excellent job of the CBAA quiz night a couple of months back. We're going to repeat that, but in spades. We have a bigger webinar token. So we can handle, I think, up to 1,000 people at TR20V. Won't that be exciting? Also, and I'll give you a little bit of a hint, some of the things I'm going to talk about could be very useful tools for helping you work with a team at a quiz night. Very useful. You can come and bribe me to find out what I actually meant later. So, all right, let's go. Firstly, how does a virtualized conference work? I hear you ask. I hear you all ask. You're going, how does a virtualized conference work? Yes, I'm glad you asked. A real conference, real warm body event has some basic attributes. There is a convention center that you go into. You walk in, you get a badge that allows you to go to sessions. In between sessions, there will be breaks and breakouts, and that's where you go and you chat to people that you have met before and people that you haven't met before. It's a pretty bad conference if you can't come away with at least 4 or 5 or 10 or 20 new contacts who are going to help you engage in your hobby and your business and everything else a little bit better. So meeting new people is a very important part of going to an event. Now, here we are at a webinar right now. We could be using the same tool as this, and we could run a conference like this, just running a series of webinars over a day. And wouldn't that be a boring thing where all you could do is talk to somebody in the chat, maybe between sessions before they shut things down? The thing about virtual conference is that everybody is somewhere else. Everybody who isn't you is in another room. So what we've got to do is break that down. Turns out there are ways to do it. Virtualization, I'm going to use the term metaphor. What does metaphor mean? It's a thing that is symbolic or representative of something else. So for everything that I've just talked about that exists in the warm body environment, it can exist if you put it together in the virtualized environment. So where a convention center has rooms and spaces and facilities, we will have a tool called Discord. Discord has channels, it has chats, it has bots, it has a number of things that actually create an environment in which talking to other people is not only possible, it's made very, very easy. Conferences have sessions that run in rooms. We're going to be using tools like this, like Zoom. We'll also possibly use Jitsi. There are many, many other conferencing tools that we've discovered. In fact, I have probably reviewed between 10 and 20 conferencing tools over the last 4 months. Zoom turns out to be one of the better ones for a whole heap of reasons. And I now am in the interesting position of having my own Zoom account team. And yesterday I took delivery of 60 Zoom licenses, but that's actually not going to be enough for Con Zealand. We're going to be adding a few more. Such is the nature of things that are happening in parallel. So it's, it's sort of pretty massive. The event, an event would normally have a badge. So here I am where I'm wearing my Technorama badge, sitting behind me over there on the shelf over there. You can just see it's a whole heap of conference badges. They're actually real conference badges. I've been to too many conferences. And you get one of those when you walk in. You will get the same thing for TR20, but it's actually based on a sign-on and a concept called a single sign-on. So you will come in, you will log in, and then every tool that you use from then on, whether you're going into Discord, you're going into Zoom, you're going into WordPress, all of those tools are enabled by the single sign-on that will then unlock your ability to get access to the things you need to do, to click on the buttons and so on. By the way, and this is probably a topic for another day, but this uses the same process, a thing called OAuth, that is used when you go and click on that button that says log on with Google or log on with your favorite thing. It's an interesting process that we don't have time to go into now, and a complex process, but from your point of view, simple. And over the last couple of months, I've actually learned a lot more about how that works and why it actually isn't as bad as I first thought it was. So I'm much more comfortable now when I click on the thing that says log on with Google, that I can actually trust Google, because the whole point of single sign-on is it actually implies a trust relationship. As I said, different topic, worth covering sometime, and we possibly will. So let's have a look at our virtual convention center. A real convention center has an entry hall, conference rooms, cafe areas, restaurants, exhibits, and back offices. Just think of any of the Technoramas that you've been to, more or less salubrious, but all of those things have been in every conference center we've ever used. So here on your screen is a picture of a typical conference center. This is actually an early sketch of how I thought Con Zealand was sort of going to work.
John, you're not sharing your screen.
What do you mean I'm not? Oh, am I not? It's dropped off.
Yes.
Have I been not sharing my screen the whole time?
Yes.
Why did you choose to tell me that now? You
Because I
could have
didn't.
let me go the whole time. Okay, here we
I
go.
could have.
Right.
Sorry.
Damn. Now we're just going to have. Okay, sorry everybody. Can we just rewind for about 20 minutes and I'll go back here. Okay. So you've missed all my wonderful charts, but here you go. Here is the picture of the conference center that I drew up, all the stuff I just talked about. It's going to be very bad on the replay, isn't it? Okay, the virtualized conference center has exactly the same thing. It has an entry hall, it has conference program, it has conference rooms, cafe area, restaurant, exhibits, and back offices. Except now, instead of being instantiated by rooms, it's now instantiated by software. I put Grenadine up there. You'll meet Grenadine in a second. Grenadine is a conference scheduling program that was created, in fact, for World Science Fiction Conventions. And if you've ever scheduled a conference, and some of you have, some of you even worked on Technorama, you know how complex it is to get all that to work. And indeed, there are always surprises when you're pulling a conference together. People drop out of sessions at the last moment. You put sessions back together again. It all comes out right on the day. The World Science Fiction Convention currently has something in excess of 500 events over 5 days, running roughly 10 hours or 12 hours a day, with somewhere between 5 and 15 parallel tracks of program. And it's huge, and 750 or 1,000 people participating in the program items. Grenadine's a program that actually makes that work. So if you ever need a program that will run a conference, come and talk to me. Okay. Another thing that became really obvious, and this was actually informed by my experience in broadcasting, is that you need some way of pulling all this together, because in a real conference environment, if something goes wrong, like the sprinklers go off, really, you just collect everybody, say, take your soggy pads and grab your stuff, we'll walk down the corridor to another room. You can't do that when the conference is virtualized. You have to do something else entirely. And very much the architecture of how we're going to do this came out of dealing with radio and television and lessons learned in broadcasting about how you communicate with people, particularly in stressful and live and real-time situations. This you will recognize as one of the space centers. I think this is the Johnson Space Center. This is how our mission control will be. All of those people in there, there's the guy in the white waistcoat who controls everything, who pulls everybody together when there is the emergency and says, we march together. And there are individuals in here, all of whom are specialists, but behind them, in other areas on the end of the intercom, are their teams who are in other buildings, other places. And we'll be doing much the same thing. So we've created a thing that is like mission control. It's got all the participants who make that work. We'll all be talking to each other using various tools, chat, real IP-based intercoms, phone, anything that will work. So look, I thought you'd like to see a couple of the bits of how this works. So I'll just go and grab these. The first one is I will show you a bit of the schedule. So this will be up very shortly. The schedule that is currently on the Technorama website is really just a glorified spreadsheet. It's not Grenadine. This is what Grenadine looks like. And when you come to the Grenadine schedule, it'll look like this. You'll just click on it. It will take you into the session that you want to look at. Now, I'm hoping, there we go. All right, so introductions. Guess who is chairing the introduction session next Saturday? Might be somebody you've met before. Now, at the moment, this session isn't enabled. I haven't logged on, so you can't see how to get from here to the session. Anybody who gets the Grenadine schedule will see this bit, but they won't actually be able to get into the room because they don't have a badge. There you go. However, if we go to a session that does have a badge, as in you have logged on and authenticated with the system, there will be a button appear that you can then click on. You click on that button, it will take you into that session. So we'll probably do this 4, 5, 6 times during the day, where you will switch sessions, probably between breaks. So when you join that session, it will take you to, there we go. So that's Jitsi. This is one I prepared earlier, so we didn't have to wait for Jitsi to start up. On Saturday, we will use a mixture of Zoom and Jitsi because we're actually testing out how things work. And one of the things that all the Technorama TR20V delegates are going to do is help us thrash out some of the bugs that we know are going to exist when 3,000 people suddenly come into this environment. Could be a little bit complex. I'm sure you've all seen, well, if you haven't seen Jitsi, you just saw it there, but jitsi.com. Jitsi is a really good free well, not shareware, it's open source software that is the underpinnings of a number of commercial offerings. It's pretty robust, and you can have conferences for as long as you like with up to 40 people using the free Jitsi service. So worth knowing about. It doesn't, unlike Zoom's free option, which goes forever if there are 2 of you, and 40 minutes if there's more than 2 of you, Jitsi will run 40 people forever, you know, plus or minus. The other piece that we're going to be using is a thing called Discord. Now, Discord came out of the gaming community. It's sort of internet relay chat on steroids. This is what the Discord interface looks like. I'm actually logged on. This is like the building that is under construction. Not all of the bits are there. It's like I've been allowed to take you into the building. There is sawdust here and there, and many bits aren't finished. There's licks of paint that are going on, so bear with me. I'll show you this, and then I'll show you one that we've actually been using for a while. So when you follow the instructions, this is what Discord will look like. You come into Discord, and after you've gone down to the little plus symbol here and added, it's called a server, but you'll get the link. You just put the link in there, bang, it creates the Technorama server in your workspace, and that's it here. So I've got a number of other servers. You can switch between them very, very quickly, except when you are on another Zoom conference when everything slows down. But here we go. These are just different environments that I've got. Plus, right up the top is a collection of all my all friends that I have. And down here is people that I know and have friended in various Discord areas, or not in any. They just happen to have sign-ons to Discord, and I friended them. And that's something very special. I'll show you in a sec. So here we are at the opening, and when you come in, you'll see over here it says start here. Can't make this any bigger, and I'm not going to try right now. So if you're having trouble seeing, apologies. You'll just have to do it yourself, and then you can make it as big as you like. So you start here, and it says when you're ready, go to orientation. So you'll find little clicks like this, which you can click on. You click on that, it will take you to the next channel. So up here, this is what Discord calls a category. You can make it appear or disappear, and I'm sitting here in orientation. One of the things we've learned is that people are sensitive to pronouns. So we give you the opportunity to identify yourself by whatever pronoun you like, or not if you don't want to do that. And you'll have the opportunity to come in here, set a pronoun, and then you come and click on one of these things. So for instance, I can set myself now to be he, him. Oh, there we go, match that. I'm not sure that the color is correct. Oh, good, I've done that. And the bot up here, the YAG bot, different discussion, has gone, yep, and it's done that for me. I can also turn that off again by clicking again, and Mr. YAG will go, oh, so you've asked me to do something as well. I could be known as she if I really want to. For anybody who's concerned, one of the challenges is sometimes these colors come in sequences that you don't expect. So it's quite possible that the coupling of blue and he, him is entirely accidental, but I'll go and check that tomorrow. So you come through there, then you walk into the main entrance of the convention center. We haven't put a graphic up here yet, but it will be. And then you go into the lobby and the open chat area. Now we're actually in places now where we can go and talk to people. Down the left-hand side here, you'll see curiously named things which sort of look like rooms you might find at a conference. So with a main auditorium, program area, we called some of them things that you might find in a radio station, the news booth. When we come down here to the bar, so there's going to be a table where you can go and find other people. And one of the metaphors is you come in and you say, oh, hello, I'm John, I'm in here. And people can see that you're actually there in that channel, come up to you, say hello, do a bit of typing, and then you can come down to one of these little ones here that has a little speaker on it, and well, we'll go into the bar called the mic stand. So if I go into there, it will automatically connect me. So down here, those of you really looking really hard, you would have seen it says voice connected. And indeed, if I want to, no idea what's going to happen when I try this because I'm starting video while I'm also already on another call. I think this is just going to say twiddle, twiddle, twiddle. Discord is trying to get access to the camera, but of course it's failing because I'm currently on Zoom and we all know that doesn't work. So I can turn the camera off. It replaces that with my icon. Now, as more people come in here, this just turns into a mass of icons and screens and people, and you can chat to them. So if somebody wanted to go into monitor speakers corner, and by the way, I can duck out of the mic stand bar and into monitor speakers corner. There we go. And I can hang up. I can also at any time go and talk to somebody privately by creating a direct message area, and you can have a private conversation with up to 6 people without doing anything at all. You just add people to your conversation. Nobody can barge in on that, whereas these other ones over here are sort of open slather. We also have an exhibits area. Not sure if we're going to get to that. We have a bit of an Easter egg hunt. That could be exciting. And we have the mission control area, which is also a whole heap of chats and audio and video areas. Now, so it sounds a bit weird until you actually get into it and see how it works. I'll just go very quickly to, here's a server that we used for the Con Zealand all staff meeting, and you can see, you know, it came in, we did the orientation, there we go, you went through badge design where you picked up your own badge. It also included what pronouns do you want, what reactions do you want, blah, 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 and then you move into the main entrance. We will also have in here, when you come in, some basic training videos, so that when you come in here, if you get a bit lost or you're having problems with your audio, there are some quick videos that will help you sort things out. And if we go down much further, we'll just sort of come down to, oh, I don't know, if I can get this to stop doing things on me. Here's one of the rooms which had chat in it. The fact it's highlighted white says there's stuff that I have not read. And in here, you can see people who have talked. The red line up there says this what's been there since you last looked, but I can go back as far as I like, back to the very first line of conversation ever happened. So there you go. Discord seems a bit weird until you get used to it. And getting used to it takes about 10 minutes. And then you will discover how useful it is as a tool. And I'm now spending a very large amount of my life in Discord. It's a great way for me to go and leave quick bits of chat for somebody. So for example, if I duck back to here, Zbang is one of my colleagues from Con Zealand. He's my 2IC. And I can just put, well, as you can see here, I put a link in there. You can click on that link. So as soon as you paste a link in there, click on it, bring it up, share the screen, talk amongst yourselves about that. There are people that I'm leaving messages for. So Henry, he's in Montreal at the moment, but I could send him a message here and say, oh, when you get up, please, blah, blah, blah. He'll see that when he gets up. It turns on a little message thing like that. I cannot speak highly enough for Discord. It is so much more than a gaming platform. So that's how we create the rooms, and you'll find as soon as you start engaging with people in that area, it's a really natural, interesting sort of metaphor. So all the information on how this works is on the Technorama website. As soon as you sign up for TR20V, the next page that you get is the landing page that says, okay, here's what you need to know, here's how to install the software. It will take you probably no more than 10 minutes to set up and configure Discord. So there you go. Alrighty, let's move along. All of this happens, I have to wait here. One of the things I've discovered beautifully about the way Windows works is it seems to think that video conferencing is more important than anything you're doing on your own machine. and its internal scheduler gets a bit slow. But I don't think that's going to be a problem for Saturday. So, all right, there we go. TR20 this Saturday. Please sign up now. Sign up for the Women's and GNC Forum. There's no charge for that event. So even if you're not attending the rest of Technorama, you can attend the forum and then the quiz night from 7:30. And now, I promised you I was going to tell you 5 things to make life easier for you. But this is like clickbait. See, before I can go into this, just like clickbait, I've got to tell you a whole lot of stuff that you didn't really come to hear. Now, unlike clickbait, I am not going to flood you with a whole lot of ads. This is actually all serious stuff. But I'm going to try and give you some context around why the next part of the conversation is important before we actually get to the 5 things. So you thought I was going to give you the 5 things straight away? No, 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 no. That would be way too simple. But we can talk about and handle questions and so on when we get to the end of this, and I'm prepared to hang around if we want to take some chat or some voice questions when we get to the end of the session. So write down those questions, make sure you don't lose any important thoughts that you have, and I'm going to run through this at breakneck speed, and if we all think this is worthwhile, and it probably is, on a later date we'll come back and we'll unpack some of these topics one-on-one. So the 3 big challenges of audio signal management in a radio station, and these have been around since day one, but it's got more complex recently because as soon as you go to digits, and we're all transitioning from analog to digital, things get more complex with audio. And the 3 big challenge areas are: 1, how do you manage 2-wire and 4-wire circuits in this environment? A 2-wire circuit is like a phone line where both signals are on the one pair of wires. A 4-wire circuit is where your input and your output are on separate connectors. And one of the challenges is, how do you get from a 2-wire circuit to a 4-wire circuit? Then speaker to microphone coupling. So much of what we do these days involves open microphones and speakers where the microphone and the speaker are connected together. How do we avoid feedback? How do we avoid signals bouncing around? And in particular, where there is delay, how do we avoid now hearing echoes? And in the old days, those of us who have been around for a little while will remember that in the old days, you could put a microphone and a speaker next to each other, and you could listen at the other end, halfway across the country, and you'd never hear any echo. Well, that is because speed of light is pretty fast, and even from one side of Australia to the other, the audio has traveled so quick that the delay is really pretty much completely irrelevant. If you go from here to Perth, the delay is about 60 milliseconds, which is sort of 1.5 frames of video. It's just outside Haas effect, so you'll hear it as a separate echo, but really only just. You'd have to listen very, very carefully to do that. As soon as you code audio on a digital circuit these days, you're starting to talk about delays easily of a second. And if you're going through codecs, and everybody knows what happens with studio transmitter links, we're now talking about delays that might be measured in seconds. It's a challenge. And we have just basic, the time delays, the latency, the bounces, and the acoustics that happen when you have digital signals that are going particularly long distances, but these now locally, even short distances with codecs. So what do? Well, there are solutions for all of these. The solution for getting from 2 wires to 4 wires is one that we've known forever: the hybrid. What does the term hybrid mean? It's actually a contraction of, correctly, the term hybrid transformer, which is either 1 transformer or 2 transformers, as we'll see in a moment. Speaker to microphone coupling is now handled by, generically, a tool we call the Acoustic Echo Cancelling, and time delays, latency, bounces, acoustics, all of this stuff is now handled by a process called mix minus. And once upon a time, we didn't really need to worry too much about mix minuses. I can tell you that in television, 90% of the job of an audio director now is to manage mix minuses. And it's not uncommon for a television audio desk to have 20 or 30 auxiliary buses just to generate mix minuses. It's that important and that critical. So let's talk about what a hybrid is. Well, hybrid transformers came in pretty quickly. This is, well, you recognize this as a pretty old phone. I don't know, this probably goes back to the 20s. It looks like a Commonwealth Ericsson wooden phone. I used to have some of these when I was a kid. And on the side of that, you'll see a handset. So, okay, let's have a look. Here's a classic telephone handset. It has a microphone. It has an earphone. And one of the first discoveries that Alexander Graham Bell and his successors made was that when you take the earphone and the microphone and you connect them together, you hear your own voice. You hear a lot of your own voice. And an early discovery of practical telephony was that most people, when they picked up the phone, hello, hello, were hearing themselves much louder than they were hearing people further away. When you hear yourself nice and loudly, what do? You talk more quietly. What do you want people to do? You want them to talk loudly, not more quietly, because in the days of the original analog phones, lines were pretty crap, which is a technical term, and lines were pretty lossy. And the last thing you want was for people to be talking more quietly. The solution was the invention of the hybrid transformer, also sometimes known as the anti-side tone induction coil. So this process of talk, 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 hear, 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 that's called side tone. Side tone is how much of yourself you hear. Turns out people get very uncomfortable if they get no side tone. And when you work with tools like Zoom or Discord, when the circuit opens, if you listen really carefully, you'll hear just a little bit, not even a lot, not even necessarily enough to hear, just enough for the brain to recognize and register as side tone. So you start to feel comfortable that you are in fact connected. A dead connection sounds quite different to the fraction of side tone that you get. So this invention, the anti-side tone induction coil, which is this piece here, and is in fact a very clever folding up of a hybrid transformer into a single device. This was the way that the telephone engineers were able to get lots of microphone going forward, but not being coupled straight into the earpiece. And of course, immediately, because people couldn't hear themselves, they started talking louder, and this was real goodness. Now, what's actually happening in there is something that is not too complex at all. Over here, we have over here is what happens when you hit the button. Okay, so over here is a two-wire circuit, and on this two-wire circuit, we have voices going backwards and forwards. So this is just like your standard telephone twisted pair with audio going in both directions, and it finishes in a telephone. Ron is the person here, and Kim is the person at the other end, probably in this case sitting on the broadcast console that has a forward connection and a return connection. Some device in the middle, like and then a miracle happens, needs to separate that out. This is the hybrid transformer. And if you analyze this circuit, you can see, in fact, it is two transformers. It has one transformer with a pair of windings on the primary and a pair of windings on the secondary, and another transformer which also has windings and windings. These two are actually sort of connected together. You can think of that as one winding, but these two are very definitely separate. And this is one transformer here, and this is another transformer there. I hear you say, I'm lost already. Just bear with me for a second. You'll notice these little dots here, and they represent that the windings are in phase. What that means is a positive going signal coming in on one coil will result in a positive going signal in the coil that it's wound around. This is how transformers work. You put an AC signal in, you get the AC signal out. If the windings are the same way, then the waveforms will rise and fall at the same time. What's really clever here, and this is what makes the hybrid work, is that one of these windings is connected backwards. And when you do analysis, and I'm not going to bore you with sort of slowing down, you'll just have to trust me on this, or come and watch this later. What's actually happening here is that this signal here comes in, goes around these coils and out. Well, that signal there is going to induce a voltage here, and it's going to induce a voltage here. It'll actually be going equally into both sets of secondaries. That's good. And by the way, the signal coming down this way will go into both of these coils here. Some of the energy is going here and will go down the line. But some of that energy also goes into this one. And the same thing would happen if you fed energy back this way. This is a bipolar circuit. Transformers don't have a direction. So anything coming down this way would go into this coil. It would be induced into there. It would be induced into there. Because it's induced into here, signal goes down. But in fact, signal coming up here comes through here, that way. The magic of the hybrid transformer is this bit here, where these two windings are connected backwards. So where these ones are connected, you could think of as in phase, these ones are connected out of phase. Or the other way around, it really doesn't matter which, as long as one set of windings is connected backwards to the other. And what then happens is that anything coming here gets to here and cancels out. It doesn't ever get to here. It cancels out with the signal that is there. So it comes into here, it comes into here, but one signal here is going one way, one signal is going the other way, because this winding is in the opposite direction. Okay, so the way the hybrid works is that provided this thing here matches that resistor there, signals don't appear across the hybrid. Typically, what it means is the output of your console, say coming this way, comes through this network. Yes, it goes down there, but about 20 dB of loss on a good day comes this way. So 20 dB is 100th of the power, 1/10 of the audio. That's actually enough to get enough signal rejection that the coupling is good enough for a phone conversation. It doesn't work if you put lots and lots of gain behind it. You will eventually get feedback this way around the transformer, but it can work well enough. When I publish this diagram, you can look at this. It's the same set of connections that we just saw, simply unfolded a different way. So repeating what we said, the signal, this resistor Y here balances out this network connection here. A signal from X will get to W, a signal from W will get to Z, but a signal from Z will not get to X. It'll be killed by about 20 dB. It actually could be perfect, but there's no such thing as perfect transformers in a perfect world. So 20 dB, pretty easy to achieve. You can do a little bit better if you do it in electronics. So I found a diagram of how that's done electronically. Pretty cute. We're not going to have enough time to analyze this circuit, but if somebody wants to engage me later, I'll tell you how and why it works. And the cleverness here is in this 600 ohm resistor and a couple of simple op amps. You could build this up at home and try it. It would work relatively quickly and relatively effectively, and probably give you better than 20 dB of isolation. And then you'd probably put transformers either side of it anyway, just so that you're not feeding phone line DC into this network. So that's the hybrid. Let's move on to what happens with people talking. So it's the same problem, that when we've got a signal going from one end to another and coming back, we need to lose the coupling of the signals. So here's an imperfect world. A person talking, signal comes into the microphone, comes into the transmission network, comes out of there, into the remote site, goes into a speaker, bounces all over the place, gets picked up by this person's microphone, comes back into the transmission network, up to here, comes out of a speaker here. Now, even if we keep the forward and return signals separate, you can see that as soon as you turn up the gain enough, there is going to be feedback. As soon as you make this microphone to there with a bit of gain, you do back into there, this speaker is now being picked up by the microphone, comes back out here, picked up by this microphone, out of that speaker, bang, we have feedback. And if you keep the levels low enough, you might not get feedback, but then you won't be able to hear very well either. The solution to this problem is what we call the Acoustic Echo Canceller. Now, Acoustic Echo Cancellers started to appear in so around about the 1980s. They weren't particularly well understood. They're now very, very well understood, and every phone has an extremely well-functioning Acoustic Echo Canceller sitting inside it, because that's what happens when you go to speakerphone. And here's how it works. Somebody at the far end who is transmitting goes, hello. The signal comes down the phone line, comes through the acoustic echo canceller, comes out of a speaker here. It goes around. This is a room over here. It's picked up, comes back into the microphone. It goes back down this way. And does it turn up at the other end into the phone handset at the other end, or the microphone, or whatever, out of the speaker at the other end? No, it doesn't. And how is this magic done? Well, we know there is going to be coupling between the speaker out and the microphone in. Can't be avoided. There's also stuff here, which is me talking, which isn't coming out of the speaker. So this is stuff that's originating in the room. The mechanism the acoustic echo canceller uses is to create a model of what the room looks like. Now, acoustic echo cancellers generally are built so that they are talking and listening all the time. As they get signal from your room, they build up a model of the room, so they start to actually understand what your room is like, and they tune. So they're not only getting the signal from the far end and the signal from the near end and sending a signal back, they're also self-tuning. And they're building a model that enables them to say, all right, I know what is coming through the microphone here. I can add that to information that I've derived that is coming in and subtract the two. So my model will sort of go, oh, what would happen to the signal coming from the far end when it gets into this room and it bounces around the walls? How would it then sound? Create an exact negative of that and add it inverted to the microphone where you're talking. Bang, instant echo cancelling. So that's what happens in here. So in this black box, and then a miracle happens, the signals from the room that aren't you talking and aren't the other end arriving are cancelled out. Acoustic echo cancellers also have a window, so there's a time base over which they can handle delays, because there are signal delays in the room. There'll be some number of milliseconds of delay just in the room due to acoustics, but they can frequently do a very good job of cancelling signals that are separated by some amount of time, sometimes 100 milliseconds or more, so that signals that have come in and have electronically bounced around the environment can also be cancelled out by the model on the way back. How well they do that depends on how much you're prepared to pay. But I can say that from the days when I first started working with acoustic echo cancellers, and they were sort of in the order of thousands of dollars each, you're now talking about something that does an even better job and comes in a $20 phone. So this is the domain of the acoustic echo canceller. Now, typically what you will deal with these days when you talk about a hybrid is a device that does both of these things at once. It has the phone connection, it has a hybrid, it splits the phone connection very effectively into forward and return, and then adds the echo canceller on the end of that to get rid of all the stuff that connects a speaker to a microphone and room acoustics and. Very, very clever piece of work. The final piece of the puzzle is a piece called mix minusing. Mix minusing isn't as hard to understand as either of the first two pieces. Mix minusing is really simple. It says, I've got sources and I've got destinations. Each of these little red dots represents a connection where the source is connected to the destination. It won't take you very long looking at this diagram, certainly not as long as it took me to draw it, to realize that if a red dot represents a connection, then every single one of these connections has the source arriving at it. So if I am in room A and I talk, I'm going to be hearing myself coming back in room A. I will also hear everything that's coming from source B, source C, and source D, which is what I want to hear. I don't particularly want to hear myself, but at the moment, those connections are made so that I will. Mix minusing simply disconnects my own signal. And it can be as simple as this. So when you set up multiple buses on an audio mixer, it's as simple as turning down the aux send for that channel to the aux bus that is feeding back to the same location. So in this diagram that I've got here, you can see that A is now going to B, C, and D, but not going back to A. I would not hear myself if I was listening to the return signal from A. Similarly, person B is not hearing the source of B, person C is not hearing the source of C, and so on. in a television environment where people are talking to remote reporters, remote throws, people in another studio, everybody who has an earpiece is being fed with an independent mix minus so that they're never hearing themselves. And typically in television, you don't listen to yourself, but you certainly don't want to hear any of your signal going away and coming back on delay. And in television now, delays of anywhere around 4 seconds are routine for remote crosses. Mix minus becomes incredibly, incredibly important. Now, the modern hybrid does all of this stuff at once. Just as I showed you on that diagram where you have the hybrid and the acoustic echo canceller. And if you have a hybrid that has multiple channels, it will also be doing mix minusing. So a device like the Gentner DH22, which has 2 channels, will cross-couple the 2 channels, but not feed each channel into itself. So it actually has two hybrids, 2 acoustic echo cancellers, and mix minusing all in the one box. A pretty clever thing. So your modern hybrid device does all of this. But if you have multiple phone lines, typically in a studio, you would actually be bringing them in through separate channels. So you're effectively doing some mix minusing in separate phone channels, as well as doing all the hybrid and as well as doing all of the echo cancelling. So most of this is now done under the covers in modern technology and will work so well that even if you get it wrong, and I have seen situations where people have taken the output of a studio, fed it into a hybrid, taken the output of the hybrid, fed it into the console, not actually had a mix minus, and the hybrid has done such a good job that it has broken the signal and not created a feedback situation. Extraordinary effort. But if your hybrid is working under those conditions, it might sort of stop a bit of feedback. It certainly will be running out of puff and not giving you the best possible results that it could on a phone call. We also have a whole lot of other problems now on typical circuits because outside broadcasts are now almost always on delay. Almost always. And we all know that monitoring at an outside broadcast is a problem because you're trying to monitor yourself, you're trying to monitor what's coming back from the studio, you're trying to monitor yourself coming back from the studio and hopefully not hearing yourself coming back, and sometimes you are, and you're trying to monitor the PA and you're trying to feed the studio to the PA when you're not actually on air, and what you end up is 3 or 4 sets of echoes, all of which have to be eliminated if you're going to create the right sort of experience for both the people at the OB, the people in the studio, and the people who are just standing around your outside broadcast listening. Local PA becomes a particular problem, but certainly interfacing to consoles can become a problem. And most of these problems revolve around the 3 things I've just talked about. They revolve around coupling, they involve echo cancellation, and they revolve around coming up with a mix minus. And now we get to the clickbait. So thank you very much for waiting this far. Now we've got the context that some of what I'm about to say will make some sense. First thing is, does your console have a mix minus? It might, and you might not know about it. One of the simplest forms of mix minus that you can generate in a console, a lot of large consoles, Kestrels, many of the Soundcraft consoles, certainly almost any digital console that you look at, will have multiple buses. It will have a program bus and an audition bus. Now, I'm not talking about Q here. I'm talking about actual buses that you could use. And typically people use program bus that goes to the transmitter, and they use the audition bus for locally recording. But you can also use that as a mix minus simply by not feeding your OB channel into the audition bus or the B bus and using the B bus to feed to your outside broadcast. Very quick way of generating a mix minus. The trick is to think about creating a feed that is everything except the signal back to the outside broadcast. A lot of consoles will create a mix minus internally electronically, not by actually lifting the signal off, but simply by taking the signal, inverting it, mixing it together with everything else, and leaving you a mix minus signal that has been electronically generated. And that's just fine if everything is lined up nicely. And with modern integrated circuits, that's not hard to do. So analog desks frequently have buttons you can press. Here's the big news. Anybody who's got an Elan Falcon 10, or possibly the smaller one as well, I don't have the circuit diagram for that, but if you have a look at the circuit diagram, the block diagram for the Falcon 10, you discover that they actually have an outside broadcast friendly mix minus bus built in. Anything that goes into channel 6 does not appear on the mix minus terminals. You already have, without doing anything, the ability to feed your OB into a channel and feed signal back to the OB that doesn't have the OB mixed with it. A little bit weird because Elan's standard thing, of course, is to use channel 1 and or channel 2 as the switchable channels. Most people put their OB as one of the switchable inputs. Well, there you go. External switching, not hard to do. Channel 6 is your friend. Simple solution number 2. You can buy hybrids really, really cheaply. Now, Gentner DH20s. So here's a DH20. Here's one that I have at home. Naturally, of course, in John's house, he has a hybrid. So here we go. This is a telephone hybrid. This is the classic Gentner DH20. It's a wonderful device. It has XLR connectors on the back. It has an output to feed a speaker locally, so you can actually have guests who are just listening to the caller on an open speaker. You can put the microphone into that speaker. The echo cancellation and feedback rejection is so good. This is an absolutely wonderful device. They pop up occasionally on eBay, and they tend to hold their value. Hundreds of dollars I have seen these go for. But actually, there is a cheaper alternative. If you look really carefully at this, it will look almost the same as the DH20. Now, just to prove it, I'll put the two together. Here we go. Here is Mr. DH20 and Mr. AP10. There we go. We'll just move it across there. They've got the same settings under covers. The buttons move slightly differently. They've got buttons on the right. Those two little sets of LEDs over here. They're actually on both. The connections on the back are slightly different. So, and you recognize that the connectors are almost, there we go. I've just lined them up. The connectors are almost in the same place. What's different? Nothing. It turns out the circuit board for the AP10, which is the conferencing version of the hybrid designed for conference rooms, has exactly the same circuitry as the classic DH20. And I confirmed this with one of their designers at a trade show once, but I pulled it up and had a look at the circuit board. The circuit boards are identical. The only difference, really, practical difference, is that one of them has Phoenix connectors and the other one has XLRs, and the AP10 doesn't have that additional speaker output for a guest in the studio. The big difference on eBay is that AP10s, working exactly the same as the DH20, tend to come up for, I don't know, 20 or 30 bucks relatively frequently. They are very cheap. They still work. They work wonderfully. It was a great design. And there's one other little dirty secret that I can throw. So this is another thing that you'll say, oh, looks almost the same. Yes, it does. This is it's a later version, the XAP series. So it just came later. It is improved. It is software controllable. And if you go the whole hog, you can control it over RJ45 connections. There is also, and I've put it on this chart here, the AP400, which is like an AP10 plus a 4-channel mic line mixer all in the one case. And those go insanely cheap because nobody knows what to do with them. But you can configure them just as a studio hybrid really, really easily. Simple solution number 3. If you have a voice over IP connection, then you are almost certainly in the situation where there is no phone line. There's no POTS line that will feed into one of the hybrids like I've just looked at. Well, you can take the audio out of the handset. Now, this thing here, this is called an RJ9 connector. There it is. That is a 4-wire circuit. So the phone has already done via its anti-side tone induction coil, or whatever it's got in there, its digital hybrid, has already done the dirty work of separating the receive audio and the send audio for you. But it's not just as simple as whacking a couple of XLR connectors on that. You'll come unstuck pretty quickly because there's also volts on there, because that's what the microphone in here, it'll either be an old carbon microphone, depending on how old the phone is, or an electret microphone. So there's still going to be a couple of volts there to power the electric capsule. But you can take these signals and you can break them out, and there are a number of RJ9 to either a tip, ring and sleeve connector, hopefully with some capacitors in there to not cause your phone to fry when you plug it into your phone socket, as in one of these, or to some other device. There are also versions of the same thing that come from the RJ9 connector and go to a tip, ring and sleeve socket for the earphone side and a tip, ring and sleeve socket for the microphone side. And that makes the job a little bit better and does at least keep the signals separate. And then there is what I've got on the screen at the moment, which is the more commercialized device. So this is from JK Audio. It's part of their Innkeeper series, a thing called the VAT2, the telephone handset audio tap. It's, you just reverse engineer your acronyms. And this device goes in line with the phone. So basically, to get it to work, you pick the handset off the phone, and the VAT2 will then intercept the audio, send it off to an XLR, take audio back in from an XLR, and send it back down the phone. It's a relatively good way to interface if you have a voice over IP phone and no other form of connection. But two things you should look for. One, VoIP phones frequently these days have a socket for an ordinary phone compatible, iPhone compatible earpiece, headset, microphone combination. So that is a good way to try to interface to a console. And another way is that the voice over IP phones, the higher end ones, frequently these days will come with a USB socket, which is fully audio USB compliant. You can plug a USB audio interface into there. The USB audio interface will then meld with the phone, secret, and give you an input and an output that you can then feed to your console. So, you know, you have the challenge of managing the connection. You've got to pick the handset off the phone. You got to do all that, or put it into speakerphone mode, or whatever else the phone requires. But there it is, the phone doing the job of your hybrid and your acoustic echo canceller in one go. So quite a good way to connect phones. Simple solution number 4. So I talked about outside broadcasts and mix minus via feeding your outside broadcast via a mix minus back to the outside broadcast, and then doing a local mix at the outside broadcast can be a very simple and effective way of solving your PA problems whilst allowing everybody to think that the PA is being fed from the studio. You simply inject your local program and the return program that doesn't include your local program into a mixer that then feeds the PA. Bingo. No delay to the PA, no echoes anywhere, and when you talk locally, your signal is going straight to the PA, also with no delay. It doesn't really take very much to do. We can talk about this some later time. I've done this very effectively on a large number of outside broadcasts with the tie line equipment, and the VIA is particularly easy to configure to do this job. And if you couple the VIA with a tie line Merlin back at the studio, intercom is also very, very easy to implement. It's a great great solution for outside broadcasts. And the final piece, remember I mentioned video conferencing tools? So we're all on Zoom. Zoom. How many connections will Zoom do? Well, for 40 minutes, you can do probably 50 connections. You know what? Running Zoom out of a PC into a console is a great way to connect multiple conversations together. And if you don't want to use Zoom, you can use Jitsi, or you can use Discord. Discord is even better because Discord allows you to control individual return lines. Most of the conferencing tools do a really great job of sorting out levels. It's extraordinary how well they do that. But Discord gives you the added ability to actually be able to slide individual channels and accurately match levels. And all of the tools, all of these conferencing tools, fix mix minusing for you. You know that when we all talk together on a Zoom conference, we never hear ourselves, we hear everybody else, everybody hears everybody else. Do the math on that and the number of cross connections. It's n times n minus 1 connections that have to be done in software for that to work. Well, if you had, say, 1,000 people on a Zoom call, which, by the way, you can do, just imagine the number of cross connections that are being managed in software at the server. But it all happens. It's great. So don't underestimate the power of using a video conferencing tool as part of your standard station setup to interface phone calls. And, by the way, how many of these products have phone lines you can dial into? Guess what? Zero charge international calls if somebody dials into a phone number in that location. Bingo. Hybrid. Solved. At once. Couldn't be better. So there you go. 5 little tricks that you can use, and I hope you do. And let's talk about some of them in more detail at a later time. We're going to come back and I'm going to remind you about the CBAA Awards. So you've got until the 17th. Here's the chart that you didn't get to see earlier. Now you get to see the chart. Write this down. Take a snap or go to the CBAA website. You can do that. And TR20V. So if you haven't already signed up, I'm really disappointed. You mean I have spent all this day preparing this chart set and you haven't already spent your $35 to go and join us on Saturday? Shame on you. Anyway, good time. And Women and GNC Forum, no charge, and the quiz night from 1930. There you go. So now I'd like to welcome Hannah back to the microphone. Hannah, you're going to tell me what amazing things were said in the chat whilst I was talking and actually sharing my screen.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you, John. If anyone has any questions, now's the time to pop them in the Q&A box down below in the little scrolly bit next to the chat window.
There are actually no questions in there at the moment.
No, no questions.
No! Wow! I was talking so fast, nobody had time to do anything with the typing.
Yeah, but whilst we did get someone in the chat.
Yeah, that's
John, you didn't mention Skype.
I didn't mention Skype. No, look, Skype's up there with all the other tools. I have always thought personally that the audio on Skype is exemplary. I still think Skype is exemplary. Skype actually has some wonderful features that you can use if you're also doing video. You can put up your Brady Bunch view on Skype and extract each window separately to a feed on a switcher using NDI or a hardware box. You know, that's something I can really salivate over. The reason I've sort of moved away from Skype is that for some, apart from you know who taking it over and not actually doing a very good job and disenfranchising me from my personal home Skype connection, is that Skype now seems to be really finicky about connecting to cameras. This isn't a problem with audio. The audio will be great, but I've had a number of situations where it just would not recognize a camera, and Zoom, Jitsi, every other tool I tried, Discord, all recognize the camera just fine. So the trick is don't trust. Test before you commit.
That's it. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. It's so lovely to have so many of you, especially considering it is absolutely freezing cold. And I hope you're all rugged up like John and I are. I've still got my rug. But yes, if you can, please sign up to the Technorama conference. It will be a really great event. And there's lots of things to learn, lots of great presenters from all around the sector, from commercial, public, and from community radio. So it will be really great. Of course, this webinar will be put up for you to look at later if you think you might have not caught something,
you want to go back and look at one of those
you can
non-charts.
go back and look at those charts.
By the way, all the webinars from the Technorama Tuesday series are available on the Technorama website or the CMTO website, so pointers from both locations.
That's correct. Harry has asked a question.
Yeah.
Would reversing the phase on a signal sort out feedback, return signal that is?
Typically, no. Anybody who works in live PA knows that sometimes selectively inverting the phase of a microphone sometimes helps with that. Just, a small iota of feedback. The problem is, as soon as you start inverting the phase of microphones, you start to create other problems. If you invert only one microphone in a studio, you will almost certainly, in a multi-mic situation, create some very nasty, horrible, really you didn't want to go there, phasing effects that you really don't want. So yes, under carefully controlled situations, it will help a little bit, but not a lot.
There you have it, Harry.
Oh, love that. That was a good question, Harry. No, it's a really good question.
Great question.
Hmm.
All right. Well, before I let you all go bravely, boldly into the night, I will ask that if you could please fill out the survey at the end of the webinar when you close the window. That'd be great. It really helps us to know what you want from the Technorama Tuesdays webinar series, and we always read the feedback. So please tell us your unfettered opinion. That'd be great. And yes, we will see you at the Technorama conference this Saturday. So thank you very much to John, and thank you very much to you, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.